What's up, guys? It's your boy, Travis Higgs, coming at you live from my apartment. Today, we're going to talk about GarageBand. GarageBand is a free software to all Mac users, so if you have a MacBook, download it. It's a great tool to use for things like editing podcasts, which is why I'm making this video today. I've had lots of my friends ask me about how to edit podcasts, and it's really, really simple if you just understand a few tools. So that's why I'm making this video. This is just going to be an intro video showing you how to get your machine set up with the correct inputs and outputs on your machine and getting that to match up with GarageBand. So here we go. Let's dive right in. Okay, so when you open up GarageBand on your computer, it's going to ask you what type of project you want to create. In this instance, we're going to select an empty project. That's going to give us a blank slate to work with. Okay, if you click this arrow, it'll pop down some more details that you can go ahead and get set up for GarageBand preferences. So we are going to make sure that the input in GarageBand and the output match the input and output in our system preferences. For just basic podcast editing, the best option is to select the built-in input and the built-in output. For what I'm doing today, I'm recording my microphone through my audio interface. The Sapphire Pro 14 is what I use, and my output device is a multi-output aggregate device that combines my audio interface and screen recording software. So, sorry for nerding out too much on you guys. Here we go. Just make sure that these settings match the settings in your system preferences. I'll open mine up real quick just so you can see. They match. My input is Sapphire. My output is the screen recording. Cool. So let's make an empty project. Here we go. Okay, the first thing it's going to ask you after you make your project is going to ask you what kind of track you want to create. For dragging and dropping MP3s or WAV files, whether it be from Zoom interviews or MP3s of songs or anything, you can just create an audio track, the one that has the microphone on it. Okay? So here's your microphone. I'm going to click these guys just to do away with those extra windows. We'll talk about what those do in a little bit. So I'm just going to show you where those settings are in GarageBand preferences. If you open preferences and go to audio MIDI, you can also select your input and output devices here. And again, your input is going to be your audio interface. If you have a USB microphone, that's what you would select to record your voice. But if you're just editing things, select built-in input and built-in output. The output is where your computer will send audio. If it's built-in output, it's going to be the headphone jack of your computer. If you select your audio interface, it's a different story. So it just depends on your situation. I will take a second to say, make sure you download all the additional content from GarageBand, from their sound library, all the extra loops and instruments that they offer. There's some really cool stuff in there. Also, make sure your software is updated to the latest, both on your Mac OS and GarageBand. You have to update them both, because that's what we're working with today. Okay, now that we've matched our input and output selections in GarageBand with the input and outputs of our system preferences, we're ready to rock and roll. Okay? So here we have a new track. Let's just talk about how to make another track really quick. It's this plus icon right here. You can click that, and it asks you again, what kind of track you want to make. Do you want to plug in a guitar? Do you want to add a beat? Not right now, but let's just make another audio track. In fact, let's make like 4. 3. We're just going to make a new one each time. Again, I'm going to do away with these guys. We'll talk about those in a second, but you can see we have 4 audio tracks here. If you click the top one, you can navigate through them using your up and down arrow keys, like so. Okay, so up here we can press play, and you will see this white bar go across the screen. That is called your playhead. Okay. You can also press record up here at the top, and that will start recording. You can also tell it didn't start recording immediately when I hit record because it gave me a count in, and you can turn that off right here. So now when I press record, it'll start immediately. Pretty cool, right? I use both depending on the situation. So you can also turn on and off your metronome here. I'm going to press play again using the space bar. Boom. You can turn your metronome off. It's crazy. Let's also look at how our project is laid out. Let's click this arrow right here, and let's just go to time. That way we view things in seconds, and that helps us a lot for podcast editing, so we can tell where we are on the timeline. Another shortcut is enter. That will bring your playhead all the way back to the beginning. Space bars, play and pause. Enter, go back to the beginning. Another one I want to show you is C. Press the C key, and you will see this yellow bar pop up. And what that is it turns on loop playback. And when it gets to the end, it'll go back to there again and play over and over and over to the end of time. Until you turn it off. You can do that or hit C. Get used to learning shortcuts. Okay, so I'm about to drag in an audio file from my friend's podcast that he wants me to take a look at. His name is Josh, and he owns a realty company called Ferrari Capital, and he has so kindly allowed me to use his first podcast episode for this video to show you guys how to edit your own podcast. So big thanks to Josh and Alicia and Pecan. So I have that file right here in my Finder. You'll see it's in M4A. It's just the type of file it is. I'm going to click and drag, and you'll see I now have it in GarageBand. Look at that. Okay, so now I can also use this guy here at the top right to zoom in and zoom out. If you want to zoom in and make really intricate edits, you can do it like that. Also, if you hold down Command and Option with these two fingers and use your scroll wheel, you can zoom in and out really fast. And then another major key, if you hold Shift, you can scroll sideways. These things really help when making edits and stuff. Okay, so now we have something in. I want to start talking about some more of these controls at the top. So we talked about the metronome and the count in. Basically, the count in gives you a 1, 2, 3, 4 before it starts recording. We talked about the project view, changing our project from beats and bars to seconds and minutes, basically. That's right here, to time. We talked about the play, pause, and stop controls, also the looping controls, how to turn that on and off with C. Next thing we're going to talk about are these controls on the top right. So the very first one is the media browser. You can import files from here. Honestly, don't use it that much. I just like dragging from my Finder. Maybe because I'm old school. I don't know. Apple loops are really fun. You can narrow down what kind of loops you want to hear. Say you need something with a tambourine. You can select tambourine, and then you hear all kinds of tambourines that you can drag into your project and add on top of things. Obviously, you don't want that for a podcast, but anyways, that's how you could do that. Also, the notes, I don't ever use that either. So going to the top left, here we go. We will use these all the time. You have the library. I don't use this one actually. The quick help button. It is really cool for beginners. So if you have it highlighted, it'll tell you what everything you hover over is. That's really cool. See? I'm just going to turn it off. Okay, so this right here is, they call it smart controls in GarageBand, but it's like the mixer. And there's two sections to the mixer. There's the master output section and the track section. So I guess I can go ahead and talk about that now. So we have this track selected and we're on the track. So now any edits we make to the EQ or compression or noise gate in this section will be done to this individual track. If we click master, all the adjustments we make here will be for every track as the master output. All your edits will affect everything here. So your master output, you'll be making adjustments to the overall sound of your mix. This is useful at the end of your recording and editing process. You can edit overall EQ, compression, limiting, stereo, imaging, reverb. Possibilities are endless. One thing I will say, the compare button is really cool. If you have ever been like me and spent hours tweaking something to get a certain sound, and then you turn it off and it sounds better than what you spent hours tweaking, this will allow you to turn your changes on and off. So anyways, going back to the track section, this is where you'll have more control of each track individually. We can access audio interface here. We can select the track's recording settings, such as the input number, the input monitoring, which is whether or not you can hear yourself, adjusting the noise gate, and the noise gate will basically mute everything when you're not talking. It's a good way to add some silence. You can also access the track's plugins, which is where we will really have fun. And we will talk more about plugins in the next video. Okay, again, we talked about how to play and pause and stop.
What's going on, everyone? I'm so stoked to be here, and I want to personally...
Thanks, Josh, for being stoked. We talked about play, pause, and stop. We talked about loop recording using C, cycle playback is what it's called. Turning your metronome on and off. We talked about the mixer, and then this is editing view. But honestly, I like to do all my edits up here on the main grid. If you have any more questions about how to just navigate through GarageBand, let me know in the comments below and I can help.